Alright, so just for fun, I want to do another little analysis of my strategic adjustments for the coming round of Supreme League. I'm not trying to become like a huge content creator for this game or anything, but I think that some of you who've been playing this for a while might appreciate some of my strategic thoughts, since I'm just very frequently like right below the whales, but right above most of the rest of the player base as far as PvP is concerned. So I guess before getting into that, I do want to mention, for those of you who watched my last video where I tried to analyze my top 48 matchup, things did not go according to plan. I was very confident that my teams 2 and 3 were going to beat his teams 2 and 3, and they did not. And my team 5 also lost. So I went 0-5. I did not make it to the top 32, but it wasn't a complete blowout. Like my Shemira versus his Zorya, that was the kind of core theme of the team 2. It was fairly close. My Shemira just kind of didn't put out quite as much damage as I needed her to, and got chipped away at by the Bonnie pretty hard. And she didn't like kind of get into her rotation where she becomes really, really difficult to kill. She got kind of beat right as the Zorya went into her first state of dormancy after using her Endure. And I mostly lost that one because I was overconfident putting Coco in that team, and instead of Rowan or Lily May or somebody who would have been more useful. So yeah, that one didn't go according to plan, and my team 3 was kind of my Freerin versus his Perseus team, and unfortunately my Freerin ulted the rest of his team and not his Perseus, and then it was down to his Lily May and his Perseus against Freerin and somebody else, but Lily May got her ult up just before my Freerin got her second ult up, so I got stuffed on that one too. And then the fifth one was kind of my Tassi versus his Freerin comp, where my Tassi was under the Dunlinger Bell, and I had all this like hopeful theory crafting that Lenya might manage to survive through the Dunlinger Bell and get her ult off, because I had the Surging Spell and I had, decent heals and everything, but Lenya just got squished immediately. So that didn't go according to plan. However, I was pleased that my Tassi managed to kill his Niru and his Solis before the Dunlinger Bell wore off. I wasn't entirely sure that she'd be able to accomplish that while the Colin shield was going on, but she did kill both of them. She just couldn't manage to deal much damage to Freerin after that. I've got to learn a little bit more about the Tassi Freerin matchup, which is that Freerin really doesn't care too much about Tassi damage, and she can also one-shot her if she's alone. So that's how my top 48 went last time, but learned a few things. I think I'm going to have some better strategies this time, and in any case, I'm going to go ahead and analyze my adjustments to the new round of the new group stage. I'm going to be using pretty much almost the same teams that I used last time, just because they're, I've thought it through and they're pretty much the best things that I can come up with. But for my team 1, I am substituting Hugin in instead of Lily May. Even though I think Lily May is probably more reliable as far as like the core idea of surviving long enough to kind of get to that mid-range Shemira ult and chip away at them. But when you're trying to make 5 teams, sometimes you want to make certain units who don't have a whole ton of utility in other teams maximize their utility in one team. And that's kind of what Thorin's doing here too, because Thorin doesn't really have a whole ton of utility in most cases, but he actually works quite well with Lily May, especially when she's boosted by the twins here. So this core, four units with the twins, Ludovic, Shemira, and Thorin, actually allow for quite a number of potential 5th units. And one of the ones that I've been really fond of in regular Supreme Arena is actually Rowan, because Rowan will give an energy potion to the twins ult immediately, and the rotation kind of gets moving pretty quickly. But I felt that Rowan and Lily May both kind of had a little bit more utility elsewhere, and I felt that Hugin I didn't really have a good place for Hugin elsewhere, and he does have some theoretical utility here, potentially keep the Thorin up long enough to get a better ult off, just focusing on that mid-range Shemira idea. So I had a lot of success with this team last round, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Hugin's going to perform this round. Obviously, it gets kind of hard countered by Contis, but you know, any team that only has one DPS gets hard countered by Contis because she just bans you as soon as you deal 40% damage to everybody. So, you know, that's just one of the rock, paper, scissors that you kind of have to deal with now at the high level, is that she is a really busted unit. So, but you can't counter everything. Hopefully I don't run into too many Contis teams with this one, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it performs with that change. So, you know, honestly, Hugin Ludovic, I think, is like, I don't know, I feel like I haven't really seen anybody else use it that much, but it is very strong because Ludovic's healing is incredible, especially if he doesn't run out of flower field, you know, and that little bit extra attack to make sure that he doesn't run out of flower field means that he just has a continuous stream there, and the shields on top of it are going to be interesting. So it's going to be interesting to me to see how that goes. Also, I like Necro Dragon in this comp because any comp that's kind of like long range, where you're like a big part of your strategy is out healing your opponent. If you're lowering the enemy team's healing as well, that could come very much in handy. So everything here kind of synergizes really well, and I'm pretty fond of this team. So anyways, my team 2, this is exactly the same team that I used last round. However, I'm using Vanguard spell this time. I'm actually very Vanguard spell is huge in this team. Because that little bit of extra healing, that little bit of extra damage, just to make a huge difference. I believe last time I was stuck using Breakthrough spell and just kind of hoping for the best, but Vanguard spell is much better here because it allows everybody to kind of heal Damon. So the core strategy, well, everything synergizes very interestingly here. I always like using Siren with Mahira just to make sure that enemy Wingguard doesn't completely shut down Hira. Yeah, Niru gets that ult off just in case the enemy team has a Lily May, and at like a high level, it's really nice to have a weak ult happen before your stronger ults happen, so that you don't just get completely shut down by Lily May if the enemy team has a Lily May. So I kind of try to make that happen on every one of my teams for the most part. And Niru also, you know, gets that extra armor on Damon, which is really huge, and he you know, hits the enemy backline so that Bonnie's aging spreads pretty well. So I've actually seen this team perform fairly well against contest teams, you know, normal human contest teams that aren't fully paragoned out. I haven't really seen how it fights against some of the crazy paragon contest teams, but I've seen it take out quite a number of contest teams just because it spreads the damage out fairly evenly, and even if Siren gets banned, they usually manage to kill the contest before she just bans everybody, and then Bonnie can kind of clean up from there, Bonnie and Damon. So I saw a lot of success with this team, and I'm looking forward to seeing if it does a little bit better with Vanguard this time. However, it does get hard countered by Gunner. In my personal opinion, Gunner and Contis are like the most useful Hypogean and Celestials in the game right now, just kind of for their versatility. Obviously, you know, it's up for debate on how you're defining usefulness, because you know, Saphir is probably the craziest carry in the game right now, but you kind of have to be a little careful to keep her alive. So yeah, in my personal opinion though, Gunner and Contis just provide a bunch of hard counters against a bunch of random teams, and I find them to be the most versatile and scariest Hypogeans that you can work with. Even though I don't regret my investment in Twins of Mahira, and Twins of Mahira are also very versatile and very good, but I think that the Contis and Gunner are just a little bit of a step above them. So that's my team 2. Hopefully it does just as well this time as it did last time. My team 3, I've opted for a very offensive Thorin free range. Alright, so I had to make a little bit of a cut here because I'm embarrassed to say that I just kept referring to Théodore as Thorin, which I might have done in one of my earlier videos as well. Though in fairness, you know, they both start with a TH, they both have an R in their name. They're both tanks and they're both evil, so they're practically the same person. But I guess at like a subconscious level, I've just I've never really spoken all of these characters' names out loud, so it's like different to like just look at them and read them and play the game than it is to speak them out loud. In any case, I'm going to try not to refer to Theodore as Thorin this time. So my team 3 here, I'm opting for a very offense-oriented Freerin strategy, even though Freerin does benefit quite a bit from having a healer due to the defensive magic. It makes her quite a powerhouse if she has a few extra kills going on. However, I didn't feel that I could fit my Damien into this. I don't have a Solis built yet, and I didn't feel that I could fit my Damien here because my Damien is pretty much mandatory for my team 4. So instead, I'm opting for a very offense-oriented Freerin team, and that's a big part of why the Leica is here. Leica's kind of doing a similar thing to what I mentioned earlier with the Hugin, where Leica doesn't have like a whole ton of utility in most other teams, but in Freerin team specifically, that extra 120 energy is actually very handy to get my Freerin to ult just a little bit sooner in case there's a Freerin Ditto, or just in general, it's nice to have that ult come out as soon as possible. And also this little haste buff is really nice on her current set, on her current brands. And the life drain doesn't hurt either, since I don't really have any heals in this team. And well, I have everything positioned like this specifically so that if there's an enemy Blight Shroom, it doesn't hit my Freerin. Because I noticed actually in the PvP in the last Supreme League, when my Freerin was positioned here, my Theodore was positioned here, my Freerin would frequently get hit by the enemy Blight Shroom, and I would just lose because she wouldn't accomplish anything. So having her positioned like this guarantees that she's not going to get hit by the Blight Shroom stun. And I've opted to have my Theodore like rush the enemy backline since I'm such a squishy team. I don't really care if these guys die. These guys have accomplished their entire purpose within the first moment of the battlefield. And if I had a healer on the other hand, if I had a healer in this team, then I would position my Theodore here to protect the healer and have a little bit more of a mid-range strategy. But because I'm fully offense-oriented here, I think that in theory my Theodore might have a little bit more utility on the enemy backline. And Iron's main purpose here is actually to get kicked by Lily May if the enemy has a Lily May, because if he wasn't here, then Freerin would get kicked and my entire strategy would just fall apart. So I'm really fond of Iron in the Theodore Freerin comp, even though having a more mid-range Theodore Freerin comp is also very good in certain matchups. However, I personally, given the units that I have available to me, I really like having this fully kill or be killed strategy going. Even though, I would kind of prefer to have my Damien here over my Lily May. However, like I said, my Damien is absolutely necessary for my Team 4. So that's what I'm going for my Theodore Freerin strategy. And the Breakthrough spell I like specifically because of the extra haste and because that little bit of extra energy also might get Lily May to use her ult before anything crazy happens. Before she gets wiped. So that's my hope there. I'm interested to see how that's going to perform. And my Team 4 here, this is the same team that I was using last time, though previously I had my Coco positioned here, and I noticed that a lot of people were using Alicith and Gwyneth on this map. So this time I'm just making sure that if there's any of that going on, I feel like Coco's a lot safer here, yeah, even though Coco isn't like a huge PvP unit, she does kind of provide an interesting win condition. And it's not like a win condition, but if she does get her ult off, and everybody is, at a reasonable health bar, then it makes it very hard for you to die. So again, most of my damage in this team is going to be coming from Surging Spell. And this team is also the reason that I didn't want my Rowan on my Team 1, even though Rowan does make my Team 1 a lot stronger, because having Rowan use his energy potion on either Orson or Shakir is really handy. And from what I noticed previously, it's like a 50-50 on who uses it on, which I'm okay with, because again, if the enemy has a Lily May, Orson gets it first, then it allows Shakir to actually get his ult off more safely. And if not, it is a little bit sad if Shakir gets it and gets kicked by Lily May, then it takes a long time to become useful again. But it's pretty much fine either way, and this team is surprisingly sturdy. And in my personal experience, Entendre is actually one of the tankiest tanks in the game, even though most of the other tanks accomplish something more useful than just tanking. Sometimes all you need your tank to do is just tank. So I've always been happy to sneak my Entendre into different lineups, and she does an excellent job in this one, and I'm excited to see how it performs. I've also noticed personally that Shakir actually does pretty well against contest teams, or I've had reasonable luck against them, because when he gets banned, at least this is what it seemed like was happening when I was watching it. It seemed like he still has to run out of his entire energy bar before he just becomes useless. Like, he's still, while he's in wolf form, he's still actually fairly useful. So I like Shakir for that reason, and overall, this team did pretty well last league, and I'm excited to see how it does this time with a slightly different positioning. And my team 5, this is where things get strategically interesting. Last time I tried to kind of cheese with my Dunlinger in the corner, and either the Pandora Tassi is what I used at first, or Hugin and Marseille, my unupgraded Marseille, is what I used in the Swiss stage. And in both of those, I got like a few wins, but they weren't really wins that mattered, because they were against people who my other teams crushed pretty handily. I think this is a lot more interesting, though. I think this idea with Hepler Odie could theoretically give Odie enough time to get a second corrosive dart off, because Odie's a very mediocre unit in the current meta, but he's not useless. He's kind of like a low tier unit, and I feel like I'm giving him a chance to kind of have a mid tier utility by capitalizing on the Hepler save and the extra HP from that. So like, I feel like there's a reasonable chance that he's going to get his poison dart off early, then he's going to get the invincibility, and during that invincibility, Tassi's going to be able to ult, maybe finish that tank, which will give Odie a chance for another poison dart. That's really all you can ask for from Odie in the current meta, is if he manages to get 2 poison darts off, then he has pretty much done his job. And other than that, obviously just stalling with the Brutus, and the real strategic adjustment the real strategic thought process that I had here was which Merlin spell do I want to use, because there is actually a significant argument in my mind for Swift Heal here, specifically because it might keep the Pandora alive actually long enough to make sure that Tassi comes out of the box with full energy. Because if the Pandora dies immediately, then that kind of ruins the entire strategy and everything falls apart. And it also raises the odds that Hepler actually gets to ult and become a good unit. And it even raises the odds that Odie, with that extra 40% HP from Hepler, might actually be useful. So I feel that there is a very interesting and significant argument for the Swift Heal spell here. Also, Orson's a good tank, so it's interesting. However, I feel that Tassi kind of struggles to kill sometimes on her own, so I've opted instead for the Sun Lance, due to the fact that Orson's gonna have a chance to get his ult off, Brutus is gonna get his ult off, Odie's gonna get his ult off, Hepler's probably gonna die before he gets his ult off. Pandora's going to get at least 1 ult after she dies, and Tassi's going to get multiple ults, so I'm more than likely going to be able to see 2 Sun Lances, if not 3 Sun Lances, in a lot of my fights. and that might be just what's required for Tassi to actually finish the fight. However, like I said, there's a pretty big argument for Swift Heal, and there's, you know, a bit of an argument for Vine Snare. I haven't really been able to test how much damage Vine Snare does, but that defense penetration could be pretty useful for Tassi. But from what I've seen so far, it's no like rock bind spell, like the rock bind spell in the previous seasons. It just did an unreasonable amount of damage for some reason. Though that might have only been at the in the final stages of the season, because everybody had a ton of damage. So Vine Snare might actually end up dealing more and more damage as the season goes on. We'll see. I'm not sure. Also, there is a bit of an argument for Frontline here. The only thing that makes me hesitant about Frontline is if the Brutus doesn't run forward, if he just runs to the side to meet somebody in the middle, then I might not get those 3 units across the line. So I'm going to kind of study how this team actually performs in this group stage, and if I see Brutus running forward and I actually like how this team is performing, I might just switch right over to the Frontline spell. You know, if everybody's dying too soon, then I might switch over to the Swift Heal spell. And if it performs well with the Sunlance, I might just leave it on the Sunlance spell, or I might completely try to come up with something else with the remaining units that I have that I don't really have a whole lot to work with, honestly. But that's what I've come up with for my scrap team, my Team 5, and I'm excited to see if it manages to pull anything off. And I think I am actually going to make a change here. I'm going to actually put my Brutus on the back line there, just in case we see Aliceth on the enemy team. Because Aliceth is really popular on this map as well, and this will force her to target Brutus, and Brutus will immediately run out of AoE range from the Pandora. So that, I actually really like that idea. And that might come in handy. We'll see. You know, like the difference between units who like stand still for a second before moving and the units who run immediately is actually pretty huge strategically in various situations. So I really like Brutus for the fact that he runs in immediately compared to Entendre. But yeah. I'm not really sure what else to say. That's pretty much all there is to my teams. And I mean, I personally, I feel like there's theory crafting for Brutus having like long-term utility in certain mid-range teams like this, just because, I mean, surviving for 5 seconds is like the tankiest tank a tank can ever be sometimes. Like that, he could be much tankier than your best tanks in the game, because your best tanks in the game require heals on them to be fully functional. So yeah, I feel that he has a little bit of utility in certain teams, even though he's not a very good unit overall. Anyways, looking forward to seeing how this team performs, and yeah, that's it for my analysis. Thanks for sticking around. Hopefully I gave you guys a few ideas for your own teams, and yeah, I'll probably make another update after this round is completed. That's my awkward goodbye. Thanks for watching.